We have before us the opportunity to forge, for ourselves and for future generations, a new world order, a world where the rule of law, and the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations.
A warlord is a leader able to exercise military, economic, and political control over a subnational territory within a sovereign state due to their ability to mobilize loyal armed forces. These armed forces, usually considered malicious, are loyal to the warlord rather than to the state regime. Warlords have existed throughout much of history, albeit in a variety of different capacities within the political, economic, and social structure of states or ungoverned territories. Welcome to Internet Warlords, the war for the Internet. Every day billions of people around the planet engage in a deadly war for the minds of mankind. Internet Warlords podcast is dedicated to winning the war for the Internet. Each week, we will feature the best and the worst of the Internet in our never-ending quest to end the war for the Internet. Are you ready? Buckle up, check your feelings at the door. Sensitive individuals that need to be protected from reality need go no further. Internet Warlords does not condone violence, nor do we give legal advice. Any individuals featured on this broadcast are presumed innocent until proven guilty in a court of law.
Well, I'm not a crook.
As we do our final broadcast checks, please take this time to go to internetwarlords.com and find out how you can help support this broadcast. We have apparel and other items available at our online store. Donations are always appreciated but never expected. Please do enjoy yourself and feel free to call in at any time. Don't forget to subscribe and make sure to hit the bell icon for live notifications. Welcome to Internet Warlords. Let the war begin. Now your host, the CEO of Internet Warlords, CJ Abernathy.
Together, we will make America great again.
When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order.
And the glow from that fire can truly light the world. And so, my fellow Americans, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country.
That the only thing we have to fear is fear itself.
Some deep flaws in American culture.
The U.S. President Barack Obama has signed the defense bill despite serious reservations by critics over the handling of terror suspects.
Now, the Obama administration has announced its support to renew 3 provisions of the U.S. Patriot Act.
The Homeland Security Act of 2002 takes the next critical steps in defending our country.
The national security question. Yes, if it wasn't for government providing all of these wonderful protection services, what could we ever possibly do to protect ourselves? And the answer is really simple, actually, but you have to first understand what war really is. And we've been fooled, again, just the assumption of all the propaganda we've been subject to tells us that countries attack other countries. It was the war between this country and this country. Bullshit. Governments use war and violence to expand their protection rackets. Simple as that. Why is Afghanistan the graveyard of empires? They are a country that essentially refuses to be governed. Now, there's one other great thing about where we are in human history right now that renders that argument pretty silly. The way that people are connected now makes the kind of wars that we used to have impossible. And I say this as a veteran of the global war on terror who tortured people in Fallujah, that yes, the scope of the global war on terror is horrific. And as a veteran activist of Iraq Veterans Against the War, it was really sad that we couldn't change the policy during the war and that the anti-war movement was revealed to be an anti-Bush movement when Obama started getting traction. And then when, hey, remember, he's killed more children with drone strikes than all other Nobel Peace Prize winners combined.
I have 2 words for you. Predator drones. You will never see it coming. You think I'm joking?
And it was sad to see that we changed policy less than nothing. We had Obama trying to keep troops in Iraq longer than the Bush administration had negotiated. But people will learn from their mistakes, even if they can't admit while they're making them that they're making them. And when Obama wanted to get boots on the ground in Syria, it was soldiers holding up those silly placards on social media that said, you know, I didn't enlist to fight for Al-Qaeda in Syria. As the book explains, governments will always get away with as much war as they can. And it's not about the war or the destruction as much as it is about the control and the exploitation and the flow of money around war. Now, a lot of people go, but Adam, what about the Chinese? Well, gee, have you noticed how they're kind of, with the American government and financial system's help, already taking over? In a world where I have a device in my pocket with the computing power that used to take a building to house connected to everyone else on the planet who has one of these, what happens when they try to get a war with Iran? And I can Skype anybody in that country. You simply cannot dress up millions of gullible young men in silly costumes and have them meet in the middle of the field where none of them live and kill each other because they're wearing different colors. But on a more fundamental principle level, if you understand that governments use violence to expand their protection rackets, what's the best defense against invasion? Refusing to be governed. Why do we say that being invaded by another country or another government is bad? Because they're going to govern you, like your government is doing now. This is why the principal founders of this country were against the concept of a standing army. What does a standing army signal to your neighboring invader, would-be invader? Oh, these people like paying taxes, don't they? Yeah, we're going to take over there.
This is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
The people that are ready to hear this don't want to hear it from someone who hasn't figured out how it improves their life. And some people can say, just on a matter of security, I'm safer because of this knowledge. Well, guess what? If you feel safer, you should have a little room to feel happier as well. And be able to share that with someone. Because I guarantee if you go to someone with the perspective of, I'm right, you're wrong, zero-sum game, let's argue, let's debate, you're going to be like Sisyphus rolling the rock up the hill over and over and over again when he votes, petitions. But the message shouldn't be hard to share. We shouldn't be arguing with people. A part of the human condition, a part of our existence that we seem to take for granted, that we just don't, we can't remind ourselves enough to stay conscious of the fact that we choose our demeanor at all times. Our state of mind, our attitude is a choice. Every bad day is self-imposed. Why would you ever choose to be anything less than perfectly happy? And sure, we can have the whole range of healthy emotional reactions, but what we do with them is always our choice. And the sad thing is how we give that up. You know, we talk a lot about the state coercion, right? The fact that everything they do is backed up with violence. What's the main way they really control us? With words. 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 We change the words. Government goes away. Like, that's all. It's words. It's mind control. And it happens from a very early age. From parents, from school, from any authority figure, from society itself. We are taught violent communication. Not just to each other, to manipulate each other by emotions, but to deny our own will. And in a sense, we're very comfortable with the outside of this, saying like, hey, I want you to be free. My world is better if you can prosper, if your will as an individual consciousness is respected. And then what do we do to ourselves? We talk down to ourselves. We live in fear and insecurity. And we allow even just a hint of that that's imposed to us from the outside to affect our behavior, to be intimidated. or I'm not even going to comply. And I think nonviolent resistance, even on that large scale, as Gandhi demonstrated, is far more effective. But what's real defense? Refusing to be governed by anyone.
My name is Adam Kokesh. I plan to run for President of the United States in 2020 to peacefully dissolve the entire federal government in 4 years or less. We are working quietly behind the scenes to make this successful and plan to formally launch in September of 2017. The most important thing you can do to help now is wake up as many people as you can to the nature of government. Give people hope that we can move past the violent statist paradigm with localization. One of the most efficient ways to do this is with our book, Freedom. You can get it for free in every digital format, including audiobook, on our website, where you can also order paper copies, read our blog, sign up for our email list, and find me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and our YouTube channel, thefreedomline.com.
What's up, everybody? It's your boy CJ, the Internet Warlord, coming to you live and loud from the great state of South Dakota. You know South Dakota, the state just south of North Dakota, that Dakota. And that is a heck of an intro for my next guest here on Internet Warlords. And, you know, for those of you that don't know this man, I would encourage you highly to look into Adam Kokesh and his candidacy as he seeks the nomination for the Libertarian Party. And, you know, one of the things that really drew me to him is his passion, his charisma, the fact that he cares, and you can tell, and he's honest, and he has no problem telling you what the crimes are that the government commits against we the people. And, you know, one of the things that drew me to the Adam Kokesh campaign, to really look into it and to consider it for my vote, was that video, was his other work he's done on podcasts like Tinfoil Hat, Joe Rogan. You've seen him all over the internet, Adam versus the man. He is beyond a reasonable doubt the one of the most outspoken veterans against the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. I don't know how much more I can introduce the man, but without further ado, you guys wanted to have this interview, and you've got it, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Adam Kokesh. How you doing today, sir?
Outstanding. Thank you so much for that introduction, brother. I don't know how I could follow up on that. I mean, you got me in the edited, polished, perfect form there, and now you want me to match that live? Are you crazy? No, I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you, and to speak to a fellow veteran. I think there's a certain warrior spirit in what we're doing as libertarians, as those who are standing up to the greatest injustice in the world today. And it is the greatest perversion of Americanism in the turn towards militarism, because militarism is anti-freedom. And it's fundamentally anti-warrior. It takes a warrior and turns you into a soldier. A warrior is someone who stands up for what is right, no matter what, who will put their life on the line to defend those who cannot defend themselves. And a soldier is someone who kills for politicians. And that is a cancer on the warrior class that has to be removed, and to re-embrace what it means and to redefine that and say, no, a warrior is a libertarian who engages in civil disobedience and politics and changes the war of words and wakes people up and is willing to take the risks necessary to fight the injustice of the state that we are facing today. Well, hold on. I have a question for you. Do you have a slogan? What's the official slogan for South Dakota? The state. So the state itself. Like I'm I'm from California originally, but then grew up mostly in New Mexico, a lot in New Mexico. And if I grew up at all, depends on how you want to define that term. And in New Mexico, the slogan is Land of Enchantment. And it's not bad, but I used to say that when I was running for Congress in New Mexico, not that I would have the power to do it anyway, but that we should change the slogan for New Mexico from Land of Enchantment to New Mexico. It's cleaner than the old Mexico.
Yeah.
And then I was there's so many bad jokes built into that. But then I was thinking for South Dakota, it's warmer than the other Dakota.
Yeah, well, actually, Meth We're On It is our new slogan. It costs $3 million. Yeah, so Adam, apparently technical difficulties. I kept the mute button on. So real quick for those that don't know, again, Adam Kokesh here, Libertarian Libertarian candidate for President of the United States, excuse me. You've seen him on Tinfoil Hat. You've seen him on Joe Rogan, Adam vs. the Man. I mean, in his activism and in his campaign speeches. Just real honor to have him on, and my apologies for the technical difficulties. I do have 10 questions or 11 or so. I'm going to try to get through them in the amount of time to make it expedient for those that did ask and submit a question. So I'll just start with number one. What is your favorite and least favorite experiences running for President of the United States?
My favorite is just being able to connect with people. I mean, even like you, having these conversations, this is what I'm passionate about. You know, I love this. One way or another, being able to just communicate with people. There's so much joy that I get from, hey, look, I figured this thing out about freedom and government and the world and life, and I want to share it with you. And all of what that entails, there are challenges, there are debates, there's resistance, there's reluctance, there's gratitude, there's acceptance, there's enlightenment, and all of that, just having a beautiful framing for the conversation of, yeah, and I'm running for president on the platform of resigning on day one and dissolving the federal government in a peaceful, orderly bankruptcy process that would be the first step in localization. I mean, I love that. That's like as a framing, just, all right, talk to me. Let's get into it. And the way that I'm able to have those responses, and it's not just like, and it's all so positive, and everybody loves me, and just appreciate. No, but then if it was, that would be boring, you know? But it's that there's this rich engagement in the process of the hive mind of humanity, of this global conversation of humanity going, all right, what are we going to do next? What are we going to do now? What are we going to do about this? What are we going to do about that? What are we going to do about pussy grabber and kid sniffer? You know, how do we deal with, you know, the evil red team and the evil blue team, right? Mm-hmm. And there's the only thing that I would say that I disliked about the experience on that level, and it's very closely related, is I kind of dislike how the Libertarian Party presidential nominating contest has a bit of a sort of personality, popularity, competition element built into it. Mm-hmm. And if I was running on personality, like I've got plenty. You want me to present that?
Right.
Talking about fun and homesteading and civil disobedience and
amen.
You know, viral videos, all that. Yeah, I mean, but I've been running on ideas, and I really understand that there is a reason to pay attention to personality. There's a reason to present personality. There's a reason to engage with people like that. But I'm always like, raise the conversation. Let's you know, what's the Eleanor Roosevelt quote? You know, small minds talk about people, mediocre minds talk about events, great minds talk about ideas, something like that. You know, I want to talk about ideas. I want to talk about the biggest ideas possible. Right. You know, like that's what's fun for me. That's what I think we should all be doing. Humanity would be better off as a whole if everybody on Earth said, how do I address the biggest problem I possibly can? Actually, it reminds me of this quote from Marianne Williamson. I'm going to butcher this one worse, but she says, you know, it serves the world little for you to live small. You know, who are you to hold back yourself from the rest of the world? Who are you to not give the gift of your genius, of your light, of your joy, of your creativity to the rest of the world. And if you, the point that she's making is, it is not our inefficiency or our limits that scare us. It is our power and our light, and we are conditioned and trained and beaten down in so many ways by society to be afraid of our own power. And I hope if nothing else, by living large, and I think you're some of my greatest proof of effectiveness here, right? That I got CJ on board the Freedom Train through Cash Jackson, and a great parental rights activist out of Illinois, and that sometimes sort of like, it's like if you made me a toilet seat full of solid gold, I would complain that every now and then I have to take a shit in it.
Oh, jeez. I did get told prior to this that you do go on your long-winded explanations of things, and I do appreciate it, because you touch on a lot of the different questions I have for you, and so I guess I'm not gonna really hold to the questions in order. I'm just gonna kind of bounce them off as you kind of bring up certain subjects.
So your next question was, what would you do if you had a toilet seat made of solid gold?
No. I want to make sure that before you get too far away from what you're talking about, that we can touch on a question.
Sure,
There was a question here that you talked about the Libertarian Party process and the nomination process, and a question that came from one of our members here in the Libertarian Party of South Dakota is who do you believe is your strongest opponent, and both within and outside of the Libertarian Party?
Well, I think it's my new quasi-running mate, John McAfee. And if he were to come, he is still technically running for president, although he said he's also running for vice president and has endorsed me in the presidential race, or my platform technically. So I think as a team, we would be by far the strongest, Kokesh McAfee. And I think that if he were to come back to the United States, I mean, part of his strategy right now is running while on the run from the IRS, which I have so much respect for. I mean, and what he would be able to do if he's the nominee or for president or vice president.
It's certainly historic.
Right. No, I mean, imagine, and he's got some other legal considerations, but I think if he came back to the United States as the nominee or the vice presidential nominee and got arrested or didn't, he's not going to be held. I mean, what he's, and I would encourage you, please interview him next, do a follow-up. But I want to say there are a host of great candidates running for the Libertarian Party nomination. John Mons, Joe Jorgensen, now Jim Gray, Jacob Hornberger, I know Arvin Vorha, Dan Berman are a couple that I actually have a very unique intellectual respect for, with their platforms being, I don't want to say similar to mine in the sense of localization or dissolving the federal government, but similar to mine in looking at fundamentally changing the concept of the federal government, and what they're proposing would transition it as pretty almost as quickly as what I'm proposing to a non-coercive institution.
Right.
I get to declare all federal laws stop being enforced on day one. With Arvin, it's no victim, no crime, and therefore tax evasion is not going to be enforced. And for Dan Berman, it's simply, Dan, taxation is theft, Berman. It's simply.
No.
We're gonna if all taxes are voluntary, or if no tax laws enforced, then government has to find a way to fund itself voluntarily. And I'm like, yeah.
I love it.
I can totally get behind that.
I love it.
And I think like those three, Dan Berman, Arvin Vorha, and John McAfee are the only three who I could be a running mate for, because I have, with my platform, made a very clear ethical commitment that I'm not going to put on the ring of power. You give it to me, I throw it directly into the fire. And with them, I think they are similarly throwing the ring. I don't want to give them too much credit because none of their platforms are as good as mine, except John McAfee's is very similar. But that they would similarly be throwing the ring in the fire and saying, you know, we're giving up the unjust power of the presidency.
Right, but then what? And you have the plan for then what?
Well, yeah, that's what I'm saying. I have a better. Well, no, I have a better plan. I have a more comprehensive plan that also points in the direction of localization.
Right.
And if anything, I think, you know, their platforms. You know, if Arvin goes in and says, I'm going to be the partner in chief, and I'm going to make sure that no victimless crime laws are enforced anywhere, and I'm going to promote jury nullification all the way down to the local level. You know.
Oh, they hate that. They hate that jury nullification.
And so same thing with Dan Berman. If he goes in and says taxation is theft, and anything that I'm doing as president is going to have to be funded voluntarily, et cetera, et cetera. I think there are too many opportunities for whiplash and for manipulation by people like George Soros and, you know, central bankers all over the world who would say, all right, well, then we're going to crash your economy. And you know, we're going to manipulate your system. I think with what I'm proposing, with what John McAfee is proposing, as we don't need a federal government anymore. You know, we'll make 50 independent states and up to 562 sovereign native nations.
Yep.
That's not only a simpler proposal, but it's more powerful. It's more comprehensive. It's more pragmatic.
It also lets people know where the next level of government is. If there is no federal, then your biggest complaint then becomes the state. And then you then, as the average everyday American citizen, have more access to run for office to change those problems, which is what I did in 2018. I ran for governor because I said, you know, the guy that was running at the Republican was Attorney General Marty Jackley, one of the most corrupt attorney generals in the country, and Kristi Noem, who is the hand-picked governor for the state of South Dakota from President Donald Trump. I mean, you're talking, for example, Governor Kristi Noem sold access to the President of the United States here in Sioux Falls. If you charge $500 for an event and you guarantee to meet the President, is that not selling access to the President?
Oh, of course. And that's part of how the whole system works, you know, where we as libertarians are at a huge disadvantage. You've heard elections described as advanced auctions of stolen goods, right? Well, we don't steal anything, so we don't have anything to auction off that way. And it has to come with a shift towards the American people realizing that a society without institutionalized theft is going to be better in every way possible. And what I was getting at there with the presidential race that is so important is that for the Libertarian Party to have a breakout year, at least, we need to be offering a fundamental alternative. When we say we're going to put up a candidate who's basically socially liberal and fiscally conservative. And that's basically, you know,
to give people the best of both worlds kind of mentalities. We're switching over from the two-party duopoly.
It doesn't work. I tell you what, though, it's a losing strategy, and I've seen this. And we could talk about just this for an hour if you want, CJ. There's so many problems with that strategy. You know, I'm fiscally conservative and socially awkward, socially liberal, like every libertarian. But when you say I'm offering you the best of both worlds, the average voter goes, you mean both shit worlds that I don't want anything to do with anyway?
Yeah.
Like, no, I'll go. I'll go with what's reliable and reassuring, and at least it's my flavor of shit.
And you volunteered for it, and that's the definition of libertarianism. It's volunteerism, which is a great segue to another question I got, again, from a libertarian here in South Dakota, wanting to know whether or not they should endorse the judge and Mr. Larry Sharp, who I think is an excellent libertarian as well. He wants to know, what does libertarianism mean to you?
Well, let me comment first on the juicy gossip part of that question, because
yes, absolutely. Don't let me get away with any juicy gossip there, please.
Yeah, no, because Jim Gray and Larry Sharp announced yesterday, both great activists, great men. I know both of them personally. I'm friends with both of them personally. as a libertarian, as an activist, as a representative of the party, I like Larry Sharpe a lot better. And I quote him regularly. He said, a libertarian is someone who says you can be as liberal or as conservative as you want, as long as you're not forcing it on anyone. And that's the crux of localization, right?
And I love that.
Yeah, you can have your community over here with your values, someone that can have their community over there with their values, and you can both get along without having to force.
Right, and your communities can volunteer to work with each other. I mean, that's what the thing about with the need for a third party to get away from that two-party red till you're dead, blue no matter who. Well, gold till you're old. Turns out you vote Democrat after you die. But
hold on, let me get to Jim Gray here.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Jim Gray, but I think he represents really the worst of that socially liberal, fiscally conservative strategy. And not only that, but he is fundamentally an authoritarian in his constitutionalism. Now, I know you're authoritarian. Okay, no, he's a libertarian. I get it. Yes, he is definitely pulling in the realm towards freedom. But I mean authoritarian in a very respectful intellectual sense, in that he still believes in the authority of the document, of the words on paper. And for anybody who's studied the Constitution with an honest, open mind, you know that the Constitution is unconstitutional in and of itself in so many ways, because it was
I'd love to hear you break that one down a little bit, please.
Yeah, well, it was an illegal usurpation under the Articles of Confederation, which required unanimous consent to alter the governing document of the then Confederate States of America. When the 13 colonies won their independence, they had their own governing document, and the founders were definitely different from the framers. The founders were the ones who said, we're going to be independent. We're going to say screw you to the king. And if we have to kill the redcoats to achieve our freedom, we're going to do it. And
at least they put on a uniform so we can know who they are.
Yeah, right.
Right.
And so then there were the moves towards a stronger central authority, to have a standing army, to have a central bank. And if you fall for the ruse that is the Bill of Rights, then you don't understand the history of how we got the Constitution, because there were people who were anti-federalists. They did not want a strong central authority in our government. They wanted the system that we had under the Articles. They wanted a decentralized system. Of course, Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, was one of them. And the Bill of Rights was like the excuse, like, give us this power and we promise we won't abuse it. See, we've got your rights protected here.
Yeah.
And it's nonsense. It's absolute nonsense. You don't need a Bill of Rights if you don't have an illegal power in the first place. And here I mean illegal in the sense of violating the natural law, which is really what libertarians are all about. The sense that you own yourself, therefore it's wrong. And libertarianism is not a political philosophy. It's really important that we separate this, unless you want to say it's ethics applied to politics. Well, it's still an ethical philosophy. It's a very simple ethical framework that we all know to be true, that we learn in kindergarten. Don't hit, don't steal, don't kill, not unless you're a cop or an IRS agent or a soldier. And the problem with what Jim Gray is offering the Libertarian Party is that it's another losing strategy. And as libertarians, we tend to be very self-conscious, and a lot of the older libertarians especially, and I mean the war horses of the party who have been around for decades. These are the guys.
I've met a few.
Yeah, these are the guys who woke up before the internet was a thing.
Yeah,
and
right.
We forget that, and how much respect is owed to someone who had the intellectual courage to break away from the mainstream and literally stand alone.
And I mean, that is literally alone. Now we're connected. I would hope that an interview like this, somebody would look back from, when the founding of the party and say, I wonder where it's going to be. And using this kind of technology to promote this kind of message through the grassroots that we do, I mean, that's what I've really enjoyed about the Libertarian Party. And the fact that you always meet people that care about their community, care about their neighbor, but don't want to force their neighbor to do something they don't want to do. And again, I love it. So let me keep the questions going so that way we don't miss anybody.
Let me wrap up though. This
point.
Because,
okay.
I'm not done bashing my new opponent in the race, Judge Jim Gray. No, I like him. And again, if he's the nominee, there's so many. Any of these names that I mentioned, Sam Robb, even Soraya Foss, Stephen Ritchie, Brian Ellison. You know, I know I'm forgetting a couple. Vermin, I think I skipped mentioning.
Cannot. Yeah, I was gonna say I had an interview with you and Vermin that I was watching this morning, and you guys are just a hoot together.
Yeah, no, and I'm trying to think. I know I'm forgetting somebody, so I apologize. But like all of the candidates who I've shared, Eric Gerhardt, Kenny Blevins, those are. Oh, and Mark Whitney. I didn't mention Mark Whitney. So any of these candidates who I've shared a stage with, I would be happy to get behind. I think that for those who are self-conscious, there's a temptation to hide behind someone who is not quite a libertarian like Jim Gray, or doesn't represent the full ethical philosophy, or who doesn't present something to the American people that is truly, fundamentally, structurally different and is going to get dismissed. And I would still fight for Jim Gray if he's the nominee. I'll organize Veterans for Gray with Larry Sharp. We'll have a lot of fun with this.
Absolutely.
I just want to emphasize that we need a better strategy to have a breakthrough and get what we really want.
And that's what I'm saying. I think that I think this is the feel out time, you know, figure out which candidate resonates with you. And then as we get closer to the nominating process, people will hone in. I think that's why an interview like this just gives everybody a chance to kind of see where you stand. So, you know, I do appreciate that response there to that question. I'm sure that my fellow party member here does as well. All right, well, I want to make sure that you have, because I don't want to miss anybody's question and have somebody message me and go, hey, CJ, you didn't ask my question, and then they get mad at me. And I will, and hopefully be able to have you on in the future as things move on. And
absolutely.
But one of the other questions here, and this one's going to be my question to you. I actually have this question that I want to ask. I ran for governor in 2018 on the premise that the government is unconstitutional. And my statement was, at least my statement was that unconstitutional courts of equity are operating under admiralty law jurisdiction and a quasi-constitution, depriving the citizenry of their fundamental liberty interests with lack of substantive and procedural due process of law and violating constitutional rights. I mean, and then some people heard me say that and they go, you're crazy. But did you understand everything I just said, Adam?
I did, but I also understand that better messaging for the Libertarian Party
Yes.
is essential to not talk over people's heads. And this is why I'm such a fan of my own strategy, which is localization.
Right.
Localization. Everybody gets what they want. Your government becomes more customized, more transparent, more accountable, more in line with the values and needs of your community. So we should localize government down to the community level. So that's my sort of response, because I came from that same perspective intellectually, where you go, well, you know, how do I fight injustice? I want to keep being a warrior. Where's the great? And then you go and you point out all the injustices, and you, as an activist, it's great to do civil.
But you should still, I mean, practice the, you know, saying what the crimes are the government commits. I mean, I don't think there's
yeah. Then you get it simple. Like you gotta be really simple about it. You know, the government is violating your rights. The government is violating the non-aggression principle. When you talk about the Constitution, even the legal, first of all, you open a whole sort of so many other cans of worms, multiple cans. Anytime you mention I don't talk about the Constitution like proactively in my message, except to say
you don't talk about it like it's going to save your life.
Right. Especially not that. But you know, that we would declare the Constitution null and void, and your states can have their own constitutions. Most human beings don't think like people who are libertarians today. Notice I didn't say like libertarians, because everybody's a libertarian. They just don't know it yet. But people who are libertarians today, and we are a white male INTJ dominated movement. There's no denying that. And we're the kind of analytical minds who, you know, will solve Rubik's cubes because we're bored, right? And you go, I want to do that. And that doesn't resonate with people. You like, is it legal? Is it constitutional? Is it technically this? Does it have this to do with history? Most people don't care, and they shouldn't. And we shouldn't expect them to care. The world is not going to get better because you read another book on economics. It's going to get better because we learned to talk to our fellow Americans about freedom in a way that resonates with them and that they understand, and to take leadership. This is the other thing. As libertarians, we have a reluctance to be in charge of stuff, to take charge or to tell other people what to do. But economically, we believe in specialization of labor. Therefore, we must also believe in specialization of leadership. You know, did you design the cut of that hoodie that you're wearing? Did you manufacture that hat that you're wearing? No, you're a follower. You're a sheeple when it comes to fashion.
You simpleton.
Right, and we do this in politics. We're the guiltiest of this.
Absolutely.
We say, "Wow," and it should be like, no, hey, you want to be a non-political person? Cool, vote libertarian and don't think about it. And if the point of libertarianism is to make government less relevant, well then guess what? Most of us as libertarians are fucking it up pretty badly because we talk about government a lot. And
right.
If we got to respect that a lot of people are just like, no, I want to minimize government's role in my life, and I want to live well. We should be able to say, let's help.
My motto when I was running for South Dakota governor was make South Dakota. I want a government so small you question whether or not there's a government at all. And that's kind of where I think that, when you wake up, you go, does President Adam Kokesh care if I want to grow 100 acres of industrial hemp on my property that I own and secure myself? And no, he doesn't. Does Adam Kokesh want to control my life? No, he doesn't. And that's kind of the thing about libertarianism is you can be who you are, just don't force anyone else to. Great touch on there. I got another question for you. This one is from a Republican. And they want to know whether or not you can say something nice about the current president. And I will give you the floor.
Well, when it comes to Cheeto Jesus, I really love the natural skin tone around his eyelids. I'd see. I like how Cadet Bone Spurs avoided going to Vietnam. I think, well, man, I mean, I can't keep going with sarcasm.
It is hard, I guarantee it.
I do genuinely respect Donald Trump. Like, I don't want to pretend in some glib way that I don't.
As a man running for president, does that make you see it in a different perspective, as a human perspective? I mean, because anybody can be called racist, xenophobic, homophobic, insert slur here. But I mean,
just because it's true, you don't have to bring it up.
Well,
it's just the first thing.
Yeah, no.
Donald Trump, though, I have immense respect for him, all the ways in which he lives large. In his business, even if they're shady businesses to some degree, and there's some elements of bankruptcy. Look, he's not fundamentally, is he a scam artist in his business dealings with Trump, development, construction, hotels?
Did he take advantage of the system, is my question.
I think that's a better way of describing it. Was there an element of sliminess to it? Oh yeah, definitely. But I still respect what he's accomplished. I respect that as a businessman, even if he's a scam, even if he's a total scam artist, he's a really good, successful one. He's a really smart one.
Remember.
He's a really clever, successful, persistent one. And I think he trolled his way into the White House. And if I think that was some. He's a troll. He has as a mentality, he loves trolling people, and I think he does it very well. He does it on the biggest stage possible. I give him all the credit in the world for that. He's fundamentally a tyrant, though. I mean, he's in it for his own power. You can see this now in the coronaphobia crisis. Literal, direct, bare naked fascism out in the open.
It is.
We're gonna buy companies. We're gonna take control. Restaurants are gonna reopen, but with different owners. Whoa!
Let me ask you.
Like,
Let me ask you a question, Adam, to follow up on that. And I think that is about as nice as you can be to the president as it is. And again, office of the president, I can respect certain aspects of the human process, but because everybody's got a mother that loves them, hopefully out there. But at the end of the day, we got to be honest about where things are. And you mentioned coronaphobia, which is another question from the Libertarian Party here of South Dakota, and it fits right into what you're talking about, and that is, what would the coronavirus, COVID-19, Wuhan, China virus, or coronaphobia response have looked like under an Adam Kokesh administration? And it's a good one.
Well, if you didn't have the federal government, you wouldn't have the CDC, by Trump's orders, conducting their deliberations in private and sequestering information. You wouldn't have federal regulations hampering the development of new drugs and vaccines. You wouldn't have federal regulations stopping doctors from practicing across borders. You wouldn't have the hyper-inflated, fear-mongering environment that we have today, where everything is grossly out of proportion. We wouldn't have a national state of emergency. Basically, all the good stuff that we have about the response today. I mean, and look at the crimes of the Chinese government around this virus in terms of secrecy and manipulation of data. I will give Trump credit. His communism and fascism is not as blatant as China's. And in China, it's worse what they've been doing with the manipulation of information. So you wouldn't have any of that, but you see how people are coming together naturally to share information. And right now, we're seeing how people are sharing information about ventilator treatment, that ventilators were being overused and actually killing people, because that was what Governor Cuomo used as his hook to say, we need help from the feds, we need more hospital beds, we need more.
And then he gets it, and then he's kissing Trump's ass the next morning on the radio, and then going on video publicly. It's just dumb. It's just dumb.
So let me sum up, though. I know you want to get to more questions here because this is important. What we would have had without the government making everything worse, we would have had all the good parts of the response without any of the shitty parts, like the lockdowns, like the martial law, like the restrictions on freedom of movement and commerce and association and assembly that we have today. Everybody would have the right to decide the level of risk that they are willing to tolerate for themselves and deal with it and mitigate that risk appropriately using their own judgment rather than by a centralized plan. And if that were the case, a lot less people would die. Now, we're debating, is the cure worse than the disease? We didn't need a special cure for this. This is a bad, funky, slightly more viral, slightly more lethal than a regular seasonal flu. If it's a full 3 times as deadly, how much do you freak out about the seasonal flu? This much? Well, make sure you freak out 3 times as much.
This much more. That much more. Yeah, I hear you.
10 times 0 is 0.
So that brings me, I don't want to try to take up too much of the time in questions, but I know you know Governor Kristi Noem here from the great state of North Dakota. And she is saying that we are basically all going to be test subjects for the new drug that they're pushing that apparently Donald Trump has stock in. If you mind, if I play this real quick, you can kind of get where we're at here in our state.
Governor, we interviewed a local lawmaker from Michigan, and she said that hydroxychloroquine, she feels like saved her life. She said, I was nearing death. I'd been infected for weeks, and I took this drug, and I immediately saw a difference. And she says it saved her life. There's been controversy about this drug, and your state is implementing or having some sort of a clinical trial. Tell us what's going on there.
Well, we wanted to go on offense against this virus, so I announced yesterday, in partnership with our 3 major health systems, that we would do the first ever statewide, state-backed clinical research drug trial on using hydroxy for these COVID-19 positive patients. It's a unique situation where we have all of our healthcare systems on the same page participating, and it's the first ever state-backed and statewide trial. I think this will give us an opportunity to help patients. We have the opportunity, with the help of the federal government and the White House, of having enough doses that we could treat up to 100,000 people in our state, and that's going to allow us the opportunity to have a therapeutic that could make all the difference in the world for those that are high risk or vulnerable.
When will the trial be wrapped up? Because so many people who have COVID, they want to take this drug.
Well, it's already started. We have folks that we received the drugs from the federal government. The hydroxy came in this weekend, and so we already have patients that are taking this, and we have this all set up as a voluntary participation program between a patient and their doctor, and Sanford Health will be leading the initiative and the trial. They're experts at this. They have a research arm that has done so many good work and so much good work in so many different areas that we're excited they're leading it, and it'll start with 2,000 patients in a separate drug trial, but we can treat up to 100,000 people throughout the state that may be struggling with the virus.
All right, Governor Nome, thank you so much.
And Adam, before you get into this, that's our current sitting governor. That's the woman I ran against, and I want you to know that woman is going to run for president against you someday. Yeah, I mean, if you haven't known this, if you don't know this, now you're learning it today. She is being groomed to be a presidential candidate for the Republican Party, and she is. But there's so much to unpack there. That was today. I thought with coronaphobia, that this is the perfect video to kind of segue into that relationship between state and federal government, and what is just your response there? I mean, there's a lot to unpack there.
I could dissect that video for an hour, and she would have 10 new assholes by the time I was done. Oh my gosh, she's running to be president for the Republicans. What?
Someday.
Yeah, right. Obviously, yeah, and it's obvious that this is a sort of publicity stunt move, but it's socialism, and I'm relieved in hearing all of this that she said it's a voluntary program. Cool. But it's not voluntary for the people paying the taxes.
There's the truth.
Right. Like, so it's not a voluntary program. They're not forcing medicine on the people. They're just forcing people who don't want anything to do with it.
It's socialism medicine. And then that's what bothers me is, just it's about 10 weeks now. America will never be a socialist country. Coronaphobia, here, try communism. Like, it went like that. It went like that. And fascism.
Especially as of the last few decades. I mean, you could go to the post-World War II era. You could go you could cut it off as post-Vietnam or, post 9/11. Really, there was, all of these wars led to major increases in state power. War is the health of the state, of course. And I think 9/11 might have been really the final turning point for the Republican Party, where it was small government in name only. And with what you're seeing in South Dakota there, that is socialized medicine, that is communism. And if you're running to represent the socialist, communist, fascist wing of the Republican Party that Trump represents, then she's doing a great job.
She is being groomed to someday step out and be that libertarian, trying to get the first female president of the United States. I believe that's what she's being groomed for. Conspiracy theory at the moment, but 5 years from now, 6 years from now, when she announces, obviously she's been in Congress, she's, governor of a state, she's being groomed for this. So, that's something to look forward to in the future. But, and to be perfectly honest, man, there's with the last, I think we've been about 45 minutes here, so I want to use the last little portion we got here to kind of touch on a few more questions, if you don't mind. Lightning round. Okay, gold standard. Where do you stand on that? This question comes from Reb Ryder out of Rapid Fire Radio and TV in South Dakota here. Gold standard. Where do you stand?
It's great. We need free market money, and if the market demands gold-backed currency, then we should have it.
All right, that's a good one. Okay, next one would be, where did it go? I think, okay, what are your current, this comes from myself, actually. Here, I'll go with my own question. What are your thoughts on family law courts in this country, and how would you address and fix these issues?
It is the biggest criminal racket that is being swept under the rug in America today. I am so excited that one of the most positive elements of my campaign is our Victims of Family Law for Kokesh Coalition. And
That was another thing that led that to me. I don't know if they heard me on the question here. The question was, what are your thoughts on family law courts in this country, and how would you address and fix these issues? Again, my apologies there, but go ahead, Mr. Kokesh.
No, it's a great question. And it's one where so many Americans as victims are bullied and shamed into silence. If you've been through a bad divorce or a custody battle or worried about CPS or DCF or whatever your state alphabet soup agency might be, taking your kids away because your neighbors saw you smoking pot or something silly like that, then, or like me, you're just a child of a bad divorce. And, if everybody who was a victim of family law was able to come out like Cash Jackson, like so many, and I want to say that he really set an example for and having traveled and toured so much now, there are a lot of other, mostly men, because this is where men are primarily victimized as fathers, and children.
Not to say that the government didn't go, wait a minute, there's more women making money now, and they start dragging them in. So I get what you're saying there for sure.
No, but it screws over everybody. But the offer generally is like, hey, we'll weaponize the state for you. Would you like the state weaponized to use against your spouse or your ex? And there's the biggest thing. A lot of this comes from the federal monetary system, and you're like, wait, how are you going to make that connection? Well, it really is the entire legal system around this, based around the U.S. dollar, child support, and alimony and court fees and things like that. There's also a federal legal framework, of course, that upholds and backs up all of the state law that is being carried out. But there's also one element of this that is even more destructive, and it's from the Health and Human Services Department. That's where a lot of the money for foster care comes in. And they have set it up in such a way that it incentivizes state-sponsored kidnapping by state agents, because their agencies will get more money, because foster parents game the system and get money for fostering kids. And then they take kids out of loving households and put them in abusive foster care. And it is so sick and sad and destructive. Of all the things that I see in America today, like, I have a few pet issues, I guess, veteran suicides, the treatment of Native Americans, but, family law would really have to be the next one. It is the most under-addressed tragedy in America. So you cut off the federal legal framework, you cut off the flow of federal money, you cut off the incentives for legalized kidnapping, and you're going to address not all, because there's still going to be problems with state governments managing divorces. But the paradigm shift that goes along with that, we'll deal with that eventually.
And that's where we were saying in the beginning of this. Yeah, that's what I was saying at the beginning of this, is that by implementing your plan, cutting off that federal incentive makes it so the average citizen can run for an office and have it be a bigger deal. And Adam, I appreciate your time today. I know that we planned for an hour. Something that I want to touch on is that, at the end of the day, we all care about our communities. We all care about our families. At least I like to believe that. I like to believe. Oh wait, there is one more question. Hold on. I'm sorry. It came. They're hitting. They hit me in the chat. They said you forgot my question. I told you it was going to happen. So this comes from a Libertarian member here in the state of South Dakota. Let me get the question back up since it went away. Okay. Here we go. This is what they want to know, and this will secure their vote. Do you believe that the world is run by a global elite pedophile cabal, and are you a follower of Q?
Yes, I remember that one. So yes and no. I think the question simplifies the premise a little bit too much when you say, is the world run by a pedophile cabal? There are definitely very powerful pedophiles in the world who are part of global scale conspiracies on a regular basis. Is pedophilia the single thing that unites all of the superclass? Probably not. And I think the way that question was worded implies that. So I can't say yes, absolutely, that's how it is. Clearly, however, I'm on board with the basic premise that yes, there are a lot of powerful, evil pedophiles in the world who have taken on roles of power in government, in corporations, and in the banking system in order to be able to get away with pedophilia. Absolutely no question there. To what extent that is a problem within the super class, I don't know. It's definitely not all of it, but it's definitely part of it. And this is where I get to, hey, if you have a knife in your back, do you want to study the knife or do you want to get it out of your back, right? I'm focused on getting it out. So similarly with QAnon, I'm not a regular follower. I have one of my friends is like, he reads the news 10, 12 hours a day, and from San Diego. I don't think he wants to be mentioned on air in these terms, although he's pumped.
It's okay. So
So he gives me Q highlights.
Okay.
And I take them all with a grain of salt, but I am, in that sense, following Q. I pay attention. Whether it is everything people say it is, I'm skeptical, but there's obviously a lot of wisdom in what comes out of Q, and a lot of important information that everybody should be considering and trying to do a bigger picture.
Absolutely. And then I think that make sure here. I think that's it for the questions that I had written down for you. Adam, whether or not you win, I think, is not the point in this. I believe that you someday could very well be a contender on a large scale. I heard that you were planning on, you have a backup plan if you got the nomination, but they wouldn't give you some attention. You got plans.
Yeah, let me cover this on the air, because I'm 38 years old and I'm holding up like I feel it in my back.
I hear you.
Interviews in a rocking chair. But yes, I'm like you. I'm very young by political standards. The pussy grabber and the kid sniffer are both over 70 years old right now, and very,
you can run
very,
circles
very
around
frail, especially in the age of coronavirus. And I am confident that if I am the nominee of the Libertarian Party with John McAfee as my running mate, or even Larry Sharp would be amazing, that we are going to be able to have a breakout year for the Libertarian Party. Now, I've said for a long time that without a black swan event, we're not going to, no Libertarian could win the White House in 2020. It requires some unexpected spark. Well, maybe coronavirus is that black swan.
We've been sitting inside for a long time, Adam. A lot of time to think.
Yeah, maybe it's not in and of itself a big enough black swan that it's going to lead this year to a libertarian revolution, but it's certainly going to push people in our direction very quickly. And if we can capitalize on that, I think we need to nominate candidates who can speak to this effectively without pulling punches. This is why I love John McAfee. He's 74, and he says, maybe having Adam as the younger guy on the top of the ticket would be better. But look, I'm 74. If the virus kills me, it's my time. There are deadlier things to worry about. I'm not fucking afraid of this virus. And that's a quote from him. He said, I'm not saying fuck on my own behalf. He said, I'm not fucking afraid. And to have that as part of the ticket would be amazing. And to get to the long-term vision for this, I think even with coronavirus, I think it's hard for us to not get 10% and to have that big of a breakout year for the Libertarian Party, that we can get 10% and plant the flag on these ideas. And if we do it, we better nominate someone who represents libertarian principles. No pulled punches, no holds barred. It's ethics, and it's a moderate, practical platform. It's not tinkering with deck chairs on the Titanic. It is fundamental. It is getting everybody into the lifeboats. That's the fundamental difference here. And if we do that in 2020, I think we can win in 24. I think it would be hard not to win in 24. Now, my great bias is always towards optimism, always towards better outcomes and happier days and victories, because that's how you move forward.
You touched on that with Mr. McAfee yesterday. You touched.
The last point here is that if we don't win in 24, we'll run in 28, we'll run in 32. And I have made the commitment to my supporters in this campaign, with this line in the sand that we have drawn, that as long as the support keeps building, I will keep running until the federal government ceases to exist one way or another.
And you know what? If you want, I think the first thing I tagged you in was a van that says abolish government. I tagged you in it. You gave it a thumbs up. It was a white van with abolish government, and I was like, yeah, I that's how you get my vote. Tell me how you're going to get rid of the federal government, and if you make sense, then I'm on board. And real quick, before we do go, I want to make sure that everybody goes to kokeshforpresident.com and make sure you check out his campaign, and if you can, help and support. Sign up for his newsletters and contribute if you can. Check out his endorsements. He's got a blog site. I mean, there's everything you can imagine here. I also know that he has thefreedomline.com as well, with a link to Kokesh for President as well. Make sure you check that out. He does have a store, or if you want to go get that awesome hoodie he's rocking right now, that would help out his campaign, I'm sure. And before we go, Adam, is there, and as well as social media, don't forget to check him out on social media. I'm sure you're all over every platform. Is there anything that you want to say before we close out this first time interview? And again, it's been an honor, a privilege to have you on. I can only imagine where you're going to go in the next 4, 8, 12 years. And I'm just, like I said, truly humbled and honored that you'd even respond to a fledgling little podcast like mine. But it means the world to me. And I'll let you have the floor to close it out and let everybody know about Adam Kokesh and freedom.
Well, thank you so much, CJ. I appreciate that, and I'm grateful for the opportunity and all the support you've given me. This is really beautiful. I very much appreciate it. I would just turn it around on you by pointing out that without an active, engaged audience, shows like this are not possible. If you enjoyed it and you see the effort that CJ is putting in, we don't get corporate sponsorships the way the old media does. A lot of this is just bootstrapped. And so if you're all the way at the end of this interview now, you owe it to yourself to put some money, to put some effort, to not where your mouth is, but where your eyes and ears are, and support independent media. Share this show. Donate to CJ, whatever he's asking for material support to keep his show going. Give it to him. Give it to anybody else who's doing a show like this. If you're a regular listener, if you're a regular consumer of any of this kind of independent media, support it. It requires you. I'm a great tech optimist, but the technology means nothing without deliberate, conscientious engagement. So please support the show and any other independent media like mine, Adam versus the Man, whatever else you might be consuming, support it. And finally, my main website, as TJ so brilliantly got to with everything there, is thefreedomline.com. You can find all my other stuff there, including my book, Freedom, which is free in every digital format possible. And with that, peace and love, y'all.
It's been a pleasure as always. Last question, one more, and I'll end it like this. With coronaphobia hopefully over soon, would you be able to or willing to attend the next Libertarian South Dakota Libertarian Convention?
Oh, absolutely. I would do it now. The only reason we shut down is because state conventions got bullied. State libertarian parties got bullied by the fearmongers into canceling state conventions.
I said we should have it at the Capitol building.
Yes, and in some places directly threatened by state government emergency orders. It is absolute nonsense. I would never have stopped going to conventions. At some point, I might have put on a mask and gloves, but I would not have slowed down one bit at all. I would have kept driving and touring and going to all of the events. So if you guys wanted me there, if you like right now, I'm in the middle of so many things now, and I'm back home at the Garden of Freedom building this place out. I got my new business, Big Igloo Geodesics. We're building geodesic domes, bigigloo.biz, and thegardenofreedom.com if anybody wants to find those operations. But yeah, I mean, if you wanted to get me on a plane this weekend to fly up to South Dakota, I would love it. I lived in Sturgis for a long summer working at Dakota Arms, making gun parts in the machine shop and wrecking motorcycles.
So you know the territory a little bit.
Oh yeah.
All right. Well, again, Adam, I hope to have you on again someday. I'll reach out to your campaign. Marcus, thank you for hooking me up with Mr. Kokesh here. He did an incredible job for you. And if there's anything I can do to help support you, Adam, you can always come on here. I can put together productions like that. And it is using our individual talents to help push the messages that we support. So I wanted to push you to the forefront and really give people the opportunity to hear us conversate. And I think it's going to mean something to somebody out there someday. So it means a lot to me today. So thank you. And I'll catch you for a little bit afterwards, and then we can go from there. Again, to everybody tuning in, thank you for watching. My name is CJ Abernathy. This is Adam Kokesh, Libertarian presidential candidate for 2020. I hope you'll check him out. And again, just so everybody is one more time aware, you can't say this enough, please go check out his website and get signed up so you can stay in the loop in all future things. Adam Kokesh. Adam Kokesh, thank you, sir, for your time today. It has been a pleasure here on Internet Warlords. I thank you. And that's about it. So
cool. Yeah, man. Hey, I'm happy to go over, but